Hello guys, how has your day been? Wherever you are right now, whether it's night and the stars are peeking through your window, or early morning and the world is still hushed, I'm grateful you're here. My name's Tim, and tonight I'll be your guide on a journey not just through time, but beyond it. A story not from history, but from before history could even begin. Before there were calendars or clocks, or even the idea of a moment. Before we begin, if you'd like to share how your day's been, I'd love to hear it. You can write a little note in the comments, maybe your mood, or just where you're listening from tonight. And if this space gives you comfort, I'd be so happy if you'd subscribe or leave a like, so we can keep returning here together, night after night. Now, take a slow breath. Let your shoulders sink into the mattress. Let your eyes rest, or close. You've done enough for today. There's nothing you need to do. Just listen. Just float. Because we are going somewhere very quiet. Somewhere deeper than time. Back. Before anything. And it starts like this. Before time had a name. Before stars had a sparkle. Before matter had weight. There was a silence so complete it couldn't even be called silence. There was no sound, but there was no ear to miss it. There was no light, but no eye too long for it. And there was no space, no stage on which anything could even exist. What was there then? That question has lived in the minds of the wisest scientists and dreamers for centuries. Some say there was a singularity, a point infinitely small, but containing everything. Others say there was nothing, but not an ordinary nothing. Not the nothingness you feel when a room is empty or a thought has slipped away. A deeper kind of nothing. A nothing that is not empty, but undefined. This nothing did not stretch across distance, because there was no distance. It didn't sit in darkness, because there was no such thing as darkness yet. It wasn't quiet or still, because quiet and stillness require time, and there was no time. It simply wasn't, or perhaps, in some strange way, it was everything but waiting. And here is where the mystery becomes real. Even when it seems like there is absolutely nothing, no matter, no space, no energy, there can still be potential. Like a story waiting to be told, like a dream waiting to unfold. It doesn't move, it doesn't glow, it just is. A kind of readiness, a breath held forever. Now imagine you are floating in that space. Not cold, not warm, no up or down, no stars, no planets, no sound, only stillness. But in that stillness, something is humming, not a song, not a sound, just the tiniest sense that things cannot stay this way forever. Some scientists believe that even this kind of nothing is unstable. That perfect stillness, at the deepest level, is not natural. That the tiniest ripple, the smallest flicker, is inevitable. Like trying to balance a pencil on its tip, something will shift. It must. It always does, and maybe, just maybe, that is how it all began. Not with a bang, not yet, but with a flicker, a shimmer in the stillness, a soft disruption in the sea of nothing. Something so small, so brief, so strange, that it doesn't seem real. A whisper not of sound, but of change. It may have been the first sign that something was becoming. That time was stretching its fingers. That energy was beginning to hum. Now take a breath with me, because this part, this flicker, is the root of everything you have ever known. The softest shift in the void became the first breath of the universe. And you, listening now, are made of that breath. Every atom in your body was once part of that moment. Not just long ago, but in a way, still connected, still echoing. Imagine a candle being lit in an endless field of nothing. But this is no ordinary flame. It is a flame of possibility. It is a light that does not yet shine, but knows how. It is the universe stretching its arms, opening its eyes for the first time. And so we rest there, in that place between not yet and almost, between absence and presence, between nothing and everything. You do not need to solve this mystery. You only need to feel it. Let it wash over you like a tide made of stardust and thought. Let your thoughts settle. Let your body rest. Because you are already part of this story. You always were. And soon, very soon, that tiny flicker will become something more. It will ripple out, expand, awaken, and when it does, it will not just change the void, it will become the universe. But not yet. Stay here a little longer, float in the hush, rest in the breath before breath. The story is just beginning, and so, in that moment before moments, in that space before space, something subtle began to stir. You are still floating there with me, not in darkness, not in light, but in something softer, something in between, a gentle hush, like the still air before dawn, like the pause between heartbeats. And in this hush, we now begin to hear something, not a sound, not a voice, but a kind of shimmer, a whisper, something ancient and yet brand new. And this whisper, dear one, is not made of words, it is made of energy, tiny, flickering, invisible energy. And it is everywhere, even though there is nowhere yet for it to be. Scientists, when they close their eyes and try to describe what might have existed before the Big Bang, speak of something called quantum foam, a name that sounds playful, even childlike, but it hides a universe of wonder. Imagine, if you can, a surface that isn't really a surface, a field that isn't quite a field. Picture it not as a thing you could touch, but as a wild sea of possibility. Tiny bits of energy, far smaller than atoms, smaller even than the particles that make up atoms, bubbling up and disappearing again, not once, not twice, but constantly, restlessly, without pattern, without end. This is the quantum vacuum. And even though the word vacuum sounds empty, it is anything but. The vacuum, in physics, is alive with possibility. Imagine if every moment countless ghost-like particles were blinking in and out of being, like fireflies in a forest with no trees, like dreams flickering on the edge of sleep. 1 second they're there, if you could call it a second, and then they're gone again. This is not magic. This is not imagination. This is the strange, documented world of quantum theory. Here in the quantum foam, nothing is stable. Nothing holds still. The closer you look, the more it swirls, shifts, and resists your gaze. Even time itself, if you could have measured it then, would be twitching, uncertain, slippery, not yet, committed to flowing forward. And yet, from this shimmering chaos, something very real would one day emerge, but not yet. For now, we rest in the hum. And as you lie there, wrapped in the safety of your blanket, your breath slow and calm, your thoughts soft and half-formed, imagine this, all around you, in every direction, or what will one day become directions, little ripples of energy are dancing. They do not last. They do not speak, but they are there. Each ripple is a whisper in the silence. Each flicker is a question to the void. Each disappearance is a secret that refuses to stay told. What causes this flickering? That is one of the great mysteries. It is written into the laws of physics. The uncertainty, the unpredictability, the refusal to stay still. The universe, at its deepest level, does not like to be pinned down. The more closely you try to look, the more it slips through your fingers, and yet it leaves behind a trace, a softness, a suggestion that something is always waiting to become. Now, imagine one of those tiny flickers, one ghost of a particle, lasting just a little bit longer than the others. Not forever, just long enough. Long enough to start something. Long enough to bend the balance. Long enough to disturb the stillness in a way that can no longer be ignored. And with that, the entire sea of foam begins to tremble. This is not an explosion. Not yet. There is no bang, no flash. Only a deepening, a swelling, a pulling in of all those flickers, all those whispers, until the very rules that held them in their restless silence begin to bend. Physicists have a name for this bending. They call it a quantum fluctuation. That is, a small, random change in the vacuum, one that is powerful enough, persistent enough, to birth something that doesn't disappear, a bubble that doesn't pop, a whisper that becomes a voice, a dream that becomes a world. Now listen, because this is where it begins. This tiny fluctuation in the heart of the quantum foam becomes the seed, not of a planet, not of a star, but of everything. All of time, all of space, all the laws of nature, all the galaxies, suns, moons, oceans, trees, laughter, sorrow, and dreams that would ever come to be. All of it, packed into a point so impossibly small that it defies our imagination. A point with no width, no depth, no location, but full, unimaginably full of potential. This is the prelude to the Big Bang, the heartbeat before the first breath, the inhale before creation exhales. And you are right here with it. Still, we have not exploded yet. There is still stillness, but now the stillness is charged. You can almost feel it, like the moment just before lightning strikes, like a held breath, trembling at the edge of release. Even now, as you lie here, warm, quiet, safe, you are connected to that moment, because that ripple, that whisper, that flicker of the quantum foam, it is inside you. It is the reason your heart beats, the reason your breath flows in and out, the reason you are here, listening, dreaming, floating. And soon, very soon, everything will change. The whisper will become a wave, the fluctuation will become fire, and the story of the universe will begin. But not just yet. Rest with it a little longer. Let your body settle deeper. Let your mind drift gently. And when you're ready, we'll open our eyes to the very first light, the moment time itself awakens. Even stillness, in its perfect hush, can only hold for so long. And now, in the place beyond place, in the endless soft void we've been floating through together, something shifts. It is not sudden, it is not loud. There is no flash, no sound, but something real begins to stir, as softly as breath slipping into a sleeping room, as gently as a ripple gliding outward across a still pond under moonlight. Do you remember that flicker we spoke of? The tiny disturbance in the quantum foam, that quiet ripple that refused to vanish like the rest? Most fluctuations appear and disappear so quickly that they leave no trace, but this one doesn't fade. It lingers, it stretches, it leans into the nothingness and dares to become more. And in that moment, the rules, if there ever were any, begin to bend. What was once a quiet vacuum, filled only with the whisper of probabilities, now holds something impossible. A flicker, yes, but a flicker with persistence, a ripple that grows. This is no longer a moment of fleeting chaos. This is the seed of transformation. And so, in the midst of this dark potential, something changes. Gently, elegantly, unstoppably. Imagine you are standing by the edge of a calm lake just before dawn. You drop a single pebble into the water. You expect it to ripple once, then fade. But instead, the water begins to expand outward in every direction, not just the ripple, but the lake itself. It grows so quickly, so silently, that in just a moment, it is no longer a lake, it is an ocean. It is not pushing outward into space, it is creating space. That is what is happening now. The ripple, this one bold flicker of energy, begins to inflate. Not like a balloon inside a room, because there is no room. It expands the way a dream expands the instant it is dreamed, stretching space from within itself, painting time where there was none before. This is what physicists call cosmic inflation, a period of expansion so rapid, so vast, that it turned a space smaller than an atom into something large enough to one day hold stars, galaxies, and everything in between. The universe, just a heartbeat old, grows faster than light, and yet it does not make a sound. It simply becomes. There is no outside, no edge to this event. There is nothing to push against. Instead, space itself is being made with each breath of growth. Time itself begins to unfold as the universe writes its first chapter, not in ink, not in fire, but in possibility. All of it, everything you know, everything you've touched, tasted, wondered, loved, begins here, not with noise, but with quiet persistence, not with chaos, but with an expanding hum, that tiny fluctuation, that brave little tremor in the sea of almost nothing, carries within it the right ingredients, the right balance of energy and tension to keep going, to keep blooming. You might think of it like a seed, tiny, self-contained, yet quietly holding the instructions for forests, sunlight, soil, and rain. This ripple is the same. It holds within it gravity, light, matter, chemistry, life. It is not just the beginning, it is the beginning of beginnings. And as the ripple becomes a wave, and the wave becomes a swelling, pulsing creation, time awakens. For the very first time, there is a before and an after. And you, dear one, are part of that unfolding. You are made of that motion, of that breath, of that choice. The laws of physics begin to emerge now, like soft notes in a symphony warming up. Gravity leans into being. Energy settles into rhythm. Particles not yet formed, but imagined, begin to swirl and gather and prepare to become real. It is as if the universe is taking its first long inhale before everything is born. Still no light, still no matter, but the scaffolding is in place. The blueprint of reality has been drawn by the hand of chance and necessity, and through it all, the universe continues to stretch, to hum, to breathe. It is a miracle, not of fire, but of stillness breaking, of rules bending, of nothing becoming brave enough to shift and strong enough to hold. That first ripple, that soft defiance of silence, becomes the womb of all things. And now, as you rest, wrapped in your own breath, your own pulse, your own warmth, know that you are not separate from this beginning. You are woven into it. You carry it in your atoms, in your cells, in the space between your thoughts. You are living proof that the ripple worked, that the silence broke, that something can come from nothing and go on to dream and sing and love and sleep. The universe is still expanding, even now, even as you lie there, and it will keep expanding long after this story ends. But in this moment, here with me, you are right at the edge of that first breaking, that first ripple, when nothing decided it didn't want to be alone anymore soon. From this expansion, heat will rise, light will flicker, and the soft quiet will give birth to the first brightness the cosmos has ever known, but not yet. For now, rest. Float here a little longer in the warmth of the rule that broke, in the stillness that moved, in the nothing that became everything, out of the silence that stirred, out of the ripple that refused to vanish, out of the swelling fabric of space and time, comes warmth, soft at first, not yet light, not yet flame, just a subtle heat rising from the pressure of a universe expanding too quickly for anything to stay cool. The ripple has grown now, no longer a whisper, no longer a flicker. It is a living breath. It moves outward in all directions at once, stretching the very meaning of space with it. And with that stretch, something beautiful begins to happen. The energy, once scattered and uncertain, begins to settle. It clings together in places, forming patches of density, little knots of promise in the fabric of the cosmos. And as these early swells of energy crowd in closer, they begin to glow, not in the way a candle glows. Not yet. This glow is primal. It is not coming from any object, because no objects exist. It is a glow of pure heat, of energy in motion. The early universe, now just seconds old, is unimaginably hot. So hot, in fact, that light cannot move freely. It crashes into particles over and over, like a firefly caught in a dense fog. This is not yet a universe you could see. It is opaque, thick, blinding in its brightness, but without vision. Still, this heat, this pressure, is the fire that will forge all things. Imagine standing at the edge of a storm you can't see, only feel. All around you, trillions of tiny energy sparks are dancing, colliding, bouncing, fusing. There is no solid ground, no sky, only motion, only energy, only heat, building and building, until it begins to create something new. And now, something miraculous takes place. That energy, wild and chaotic, begins to transform. It condenses into the very first matter. From pure energy, tiny particles are born. Not stars, not atoms, not yet, but the tiniest building blocks of everything to come. These are quarks, gluons, electrons, subatomic guests at the first banquet of reality. They are small, incomprehensibly small, but together they begin to dance in harmony, locked in forces we now call the fundamental laws of nature. Gravity, electromagnetism, strong and weak nuclear forces all begin to shape their behavior, like invisible music guiding invisible partners. In this heat and pressure, some particles bond, others break apart. Some last only a breath, others stay. This is where matter first earns its name, where chaos begins to organize itself, where the early universe becomes not just expanding, but evolving. And with this evolution comes the first possibility of light. But still, it is too hot for anything to truly shine. Light, as we know it, can only travel when it is free, when it isn't constantly being absorbed and re-emitted. And here, in this thick, radiant soup, it is trapped. The cosmos is full of light, but none of it can escape. It is a glowing womb, a universe still carrying its light within. And so we wait. We float in that brilliance, knowing that what cannot yet shine will one day blaze, that what is hidden will soon be revealed. And as the seconds stretch into minutes, and the universe cools just slightly, new bonds form. Protons begin to take shape, neutrons too. These, together, will become the first atomic nuclei. Still, the glow continues. Still, It is too hot for atoms to truly hold, but we are getting closer. The universe, like a candle heating wax, is softening into form. Its first pieces are gathering. Its light is coiled, waiting for release. You may not feel it now, tucked safely in your bed, but the very atoms in your body were born from this fire, from this first forging. The carbon in your bones, the oxygen in your breath, the calcium in your teeth, all of it born from this great expansion, not from dust, from light. We are light, made solid. We are energy, slowed into shape. And here, in this quiet story, you are floating inside the furnace that began it all. The first flicker may not yet have broken free, but it is close, so close. In just a little while, hundreds of thousands of years from this early moment, the universe will cool enough for atoms to form fully. When that happens, light will finally be free to travel. It will break loose from the fog, and it will shine across the vastness. That light will stretch and stretch, losing energy as it travels, softening from bright white to red to microwave, and we, even now, can still detect it, the cosmic background radiation, the oldest light in existence, still whispering to us from the beginning. But for now, we are in the moment before that freedom, a glowing cosmos, thick with light that cannot move, warmth that cannot escape, particles that are learning how to hold hands. You are floating through a world of energy, learning how to become matter. You are resting in the glow of the first fire, still silent, still hidden, but full of everything that will ever be. Soon, that light will break free. Soon, the fog will lift. But not tonight. Tonight, we stay in the glow. Tonight, we rest in the warmth before vision. Tonight, we lie gently in the breath between becoming and seeing. And when you are ready, we will travel forward to listen for the echoes this first light left behind, the messages still whispering through space, telling us the story of how it all began. But for now, rest. The light was born, and it ran. After hundreds of thousands of years wrapped in fire and fog, the universe finally cooled just enough for the first true atoms to form tiny, stable homes made of one proton and one electron, floating through vast space. And with these atoms came a gift, clarity, no longer scattered and bouncing, no longer absorbed and re-emitted a million times each second. The light was finally free. It slipped through the early clouds like a soft breath escaping the warmth of a held body. It moved forward, outward, into a cosmos that had never seen before. And even now, it has not stopped moving. That light, that first great sigh of the universe, still stretches across the sky, not in flashes, not in beams, but in something softer, something older, a low, glowing whisper that has traveled for over 13 billion years, cooling as it drifts, fading gently from brilliant white to warm red, from red to invisible microwave, and still it moves. We call it the cosmic microwave background, but that name doesn't capture the poetry of it, because it's not just a background, it's a memory, a message, a faint hum in the dark, sent by a baby universe, still swaddled in its first light. And even now, if we listen with quiet instruments, great dishes pointed into the blackness, we can hear it. It is not music, but it carries harmony. It is not a voice, but it tells a story of birth, of expansion, of rules being born alongside matter, of heat that sang itself into stars, of time flowing from nothing into now. As you lie here, still and quiet, you are surrounded by this hum. Every direction you turn, it is there, above your pillow, beneath your floor, through the trees, the buildings, the clouds. It comes from every corner of the sky, equally, because there are no corners, only the endless middle of a story that has no edge, and it has never stopped speaking. Imagine this light as an ocean, a soft tide that moves not with waves, but with memory, not water, but warmth, not crashing, just pulsing, slowly, steadily, gently. It doesn't need to be seen to be real. It has been folded into every star, every planet, every cell. It sings from inside the fire of the sun, and it glows faintly in the darkest sky. And you, dear one, are made of what it left behind. The atoms that now form your hands, your skin, your heart were once nothing more than wild energy in the breath of this new universe, forged in stars that had not yet formed, shaped by gravity that had only just been born, cooled by time as it stretched its fingers across the widening sky. You are the echo of that first flicker. You are the softness that came after the fire. You are the quiet knowing that came after the storm. And the universe remembers. It remembers in the way galaxies spin, in the way distant stars shine with ancient light, in the way cold space still holds the warmth of a long-forgotten flame. Even the space between your thoughts, that tiny pause between breaths, holds a trace of that first moment. The echo is in you, around you, always. And what's more, we can see it. Scientists, looking up through telescopes and listening through receivers, have captured the glow of the cosmic background. They've mapped it like a sky full of soft freckles, warmer here, cooler there, tiny ripples in the ancient fire, frozen into place like fingerprints of creation. Each one tells us a little more. Each one pulls us closer to understanding what really happened, not just at the beginning, but before the beginning. It's strange, isn't it, to think that the farthest we can see into space is also the farthest we can see into time, that to look outward is to look back, that above your rooftop, beyond the clouds and satellites, beyond even the brightest stars, there is an image painted in soft light of the universe's very first breath, and it's still glowing, quiet, steady, endless. So now, as you lie here, wrapped in your own stillness, breathing in the peace of the present moment, know that you are part of something very old and very beautiful. You are part of a story that began before memory, before history, before words, and somehow you carry that story within you. The night sky is not empty. It is full of time. The dark is not silent. It is full of whispers. And your rest, right now, is not small. It is part of a deep rhythm that began long before your first breath and will continue long after your last. So rest easy now, love. Let the echoes sing you to sleep. Let the warmth of that first light cradle you gently. Let the softness of the sky remind you, you are not lost. You are part of everything, and everything remembers.